Hello everyone, this is Ramzy Baroud with the Palestinian View. Arin al-Usud, the Lion's Den, is a new group that is supposedly multifactional group that is operating in the city of Nablus in the occupied Palestinian West Bank. The group is branching out, they are working and connecting with other groups in Jenin, in the greater Nablus area, in Al-Khalil, Hebron, and in other places. There's a lot of discussion in Palestine about the Lion's Den, but we know that the Palestinian people are loving it. They are loving the idea of the Lion's Den. The fact that a group of Palestinian youngsters are taking on the initiative to operate, think, and organize beyond the Palestinian Authority, of course, but also beyond the traditional Palestinian factions. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are anti-this or anti-that. They are saying that we don't necessarily have to confine ourselves to the limited and the traditional role with the political agendas that comes with these political factions, be it Fatah, be it Hamas, be it any other. Now, it's very, very important that we mention here that in Palestine, when you have a political group or an armed group of any kind that just kind of appears out of nowhere, people are quite suspicious, because it means that maybe they are an implant from an outside agency or an outside country or force. For example, in Gaza, we have seen in recent years various groups that kind of seemingly appeared out of nowhere, and it was viewed with a lot of suspicions, and that often led to violence, arrests, and even killings. Not in the case of the Lion's Den, because we know, most Palestinians, if not all Palestinians, know that they are a homegrown political group that is operating with a non-factional agenda, and they come from specific neighborhoods in specific towns and villages in the Nablus area, and they are operating with a very clear vision, political vision, that goes beyond the limits imposed on most Palestinians by, on one hand, the Palestinian Authority, and on the other hand, the factional infighting that has been ongoing for quite some time. For a while, we have been talking about a transition happening in Palestine. What really strengthened our beliefs that there is a transition was May 2021, known as the Unity Intifada. In the Unity Intifada, Palestinians for the first time began using slogans and creating a unified discourse from Sheikh Jarrah to Gaza, to the West Bank, and to Palestine 48, today's Israel, that does not subscribe to the old language and the factional agenda and ideological agenda, or rather the self-serving ideological agendas that come with these factions. So we've been saying, yes, our early assumptions that there is a transition underway in Palestine is now strengthened by this new phenomenon. What does this mean? We actually still don't know, but we know certain things. We know that the Palestinian Authority clearly is not very happy with this. They actually tried to bribe the guys in Nablus. They offered them jobs. They said, we will serve as the middlemen between you and Israel, and we will sort out whatever security concerns Israel has for you, and we, in fact, will give you jobs. They said, nope, not going to happen, not this time. These kind of deals, in fact, happened in the past with members of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, which is the armed wing of Fatah. And they've always been, there's been all sorts of problems between the political leadership of Fatah and the fighters on the ground. And at times they did manage to sort out these differences, or to keep these differences from reaching a point of, I don't know, a semi-state of civil war, clashes, and violence. But this time around, the Lion's Den are saying it's not going to happen, because we are not launching this rebellion because of unemployment and because of work difficulties and that sort of thing. We want to unify our people. We want an alternative leadership to the cohesioning leadership represented by Mahmoud Abbas and his merry men of the West Bank. Israel is, of course, terrified. They are saying this is a very, very big problem and we have to deal with it, and we have to deal with it sooner or later. The Lion's Den fighters have been spotted in various parts of the West Bank, fighting with the Israelis, besieging armed settlers, killing a soldier, an occupation soldier in the Shu'afat region. And so they are making their voice heard, and they are becoming an actual force, and they are growing in number. Now, Benny Gantz, Israel's defense minister, is saying they're just 30 guys and we are going to deal with them sooner or later. This is not going to be a problem. Of course, Israel is terrified that the Lion's Den is going to be an issue before the November elections. And they are worried that if the Lion's Den tries to strike at Israeli targets on the eve of the elections, perhaps a few days earlier, could cost the government or the current ruling coalition heavily. So they are trying to deal with it, but they also know that this time around things have changed. The Lion's Den is not a representation of 30 or 40 guys operating in Nablus, but it is the tip of the iceberg. Palestinian society is rebelling, and there is an armed rebellion that is happening in Jenin, it's happening in Nablus. I have wrote extensively about it. I have wrote about it years ago, that there is this transition that is underway. If you talk to the people, if you read local media, if you engage ordinary Palestinians on the ground, you would realize that on the one hand, they are moving away from the Palestinian Authority. The PA is merely serving the role of the employer, but definitely not a political leadership that represents the aspirations of the Palestinian people. But what they were waiting for is an alternative. How many conferences did we hold around the world talking about the alternatives, and how many people falsely posed as this new alternative to the Palestinian leadership? And the answer has always been, listen to the Palestinian people in Palestine itself. Okay, don't let our egos and our hubris kind of take over. The only ones who are going to represent the Palestinians fairly should be chosen by the Palestinian people. And I think this movement in Palestine itself, not just the Lion's Den or the Jenin brigades or the Nablus brigades or the Al-Khalil brigades, but rather this new leadership that represents itself in an armed way, but also in a grassroots organic mobilization in the streets type of way, in the intellectual phenomenon that is happening in the West Bank, in local media, in the fact that new names and new people and new organizations are being formed and formulated all the time, indicate that the Palestinian people, especially this generation, is telling us a couple of things. We are ready to move on, and two, we have our own alternative leadership. It will take time for this leadership to be formulated. It will take time before we start learning the names and the demands and the expectations. And Israel is going to do everything in its power to crush it. And the Palestinian Authority is going to do everything in its power to divide it and conquer it. But eventually, I think it will succeed. I think it will succeed because any change that happens in any society, if it is rooted in a grassroots movement and it's an expression of something real that's happening at a collective level, it cannot be easily crushed. I think the Palestinian people are ready for that moment. And I think that transition, that coveted transition for change that we have been talking about for such a long time, is finally upon us. This was Ramzy Baroud with the Palestinian View. If you like this content, please do not forget to subscribe and to ring the bell below so that you will receive more of our videos in the future. And if you haven't as of yet supported the Palestine Chronicle, please do so. The Palestine Chronicle is an independent media organization that is 100% 100% reliant on its readers. So please do not forget to support us. And thank you again. Talk soon. Bye-bye.